talk about the Las Vegas Raiders and everything that they have been through over the last few years. We're mainly going to focus on what has happened in the 2025 NFL Draft and what they've done this offseason as a whole in terms of overhauling their roster and their administration with key names like Tom Brady, Pete Carroll, and Geno Smith. But before I get into the current administration, we have to go back a few years ago. Now, I have done many videos about the Las Vegas Raiders in the past. I've said that the ownership in the past has been terrible. He's went out there and selected the wrong names. But I will say this in defense of him. He's ran into some bad luck, into some bad situations. When we go back a few years ago, when he first hired John Gruden, there was a lot of hype around this organization. John Gruden was a former coach for the then Oakland Raiders. He had a lot of success, especially with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He comes back to the NFL. He was making some major moves. They traded Amari Cooper. They went out there, they traded Khalil Mack. You moved off of those key pieces to turn those key names into future first-round picks. John Gruden would never get to finish his plan with the Las Vegas Raiders. They had to fire him because of emails that leaked. Some nasty emails, but they moved off of John Gruden. At the same time, it was a season from hell for the Las Vegas Raiders. Henry Ruggs, who had the potential to be a star wide receiver in the NFL with his speed, would go out there and get into a terrible car accident. He was drunk driving and he messed around and he killed someone, which is a terrible situation. Prayers to the victim and her family to this day. Henry Ruggs is still arrested as I record this video. It was a dark cloud over this organization, but you still had some key names: Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, Derek Carr. They went out there, they made the NFL playoffs with Rich Bisaccia. Rich Bisaccia, special teams coach. He steps in. They rally around him. They were just one play away against the Cincinnati Bengals, a tough football team that season, from advancing in the NFL playoffs. There was a lot of belief in the locker room. We played so well with Rich Bisaccia. We went out there. We made the NFL playoffs. We should bring him back as the head coach. That was not the case. They went out there and they hired Josh McDaniels. The last time that we saw Josh McDaniels as a head coach in the NFL, it was with the Denver Broncos. He has so many scandals with that organization and so many nasty things behind the scenes. In terms of going into the office, tearing down pictures of John Elway and Shannon Sharp and Terrell Davis. He wanted to bring in his own culture, similar to what Bill Belichick did with the Patriots. He's basically trying to be Bill Belichick 2.0, and that never works out. Within just a few years with the Denver Broncos, they moved off of Josh McDaniels. But you hope that he was able to go out there and grow and mature as a coach. That was not the case. The first season with Derek Carr was up and down. You bring in Devontae Adams, they'll move off of Derek Carr. Josh McDaniels said that he didn't want him to be the quarterback. He'll cut Derek Carr. He goes out there, he brings in Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, the general manager at this time was Dave Ziegler. He also had Patriot ties with Josh McDaniels. You bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, you hope that he could fit the system. At the time, he was not a better quarterback than Derek Carr. Derek Carr will go over to the New Orleans Saints. Right now, Derek Carr's dealing with shoulder injury. It seems like his career has fizzled out with that organization. Stay tuned on the Saints video in the future. But at this point in time, you saw the Raiders go into a different situation here. You have Jimmy Garoppolo as a starting quarterback, Devontae Adams, star wide receiver. He's very frustrated with the organization. He's sick and tired of Jimmy Garoppolo. But it's a lot of turmoil with the front office and with the ownership. He's upset with Dave Ziegler, the general manager, and the same with Josh McDaniels, the head coach. Well, he'll go out there at the halfway point in the season. After they faced the Detroit Lions Monday Night Football game, they got blown out by the Lions. He'll move off of both the general manager and the head coach. Antonio Pierce, he's an interim head coach. For the rest of the season, the Raiders will play strong. They'll keep their head above water. They did not make the NFL playoffs per se, but they showed a lot of good things underneath Antonio Pierce. Max Crosby wanted to bring the man back. He was saying, hey, if we don't bring back AP, what are we doing here? I may request a trade. So they bring back Antonio Pierce. Antonio Pierce goes out there in free agency. He's making some moves. They have to bring in another quarterback. At this time, something pivotal happened. When he became the interim head coach, Jimmy Garoppolo was dealing with a shoulder injury. That's true. He was also leading the league in interceptions before he got injured. He yanked him out of the starting lineup in favor of Aiden O'Connell, a rookie quarterback who was not ready to start just yet, but was a better quarterback option than Jimmy Garoppolo. By placing him in there, you got to see what he could do on a consistent basis. He has some up and down moments. He's like a typical rookie. They're running back next season with him and Gardner Minshew. He will start Gardner Minshew over Aiden O'Connell. This is where we go into a rough situation with Antonio Pierce. There's a lot of reports that he lost the locker room. He rubbed the players the wrong way. At the same time, he's trying to bring back that Raiders way with this organization from a long time ago. They will move off Antonio Pierce after just one full season and their general manager and Tom Telesco. Part of the reason, he lost the locker room and your offense was horrible. Remember the name of Luke Getsy. He hired Luke Getsy, former offensive coordinator from the Chicago Bears. I say this every time I talk about Luke Getsy. He's one of the worst offensive coordinators I've ever seen. In my opinion, he's the worst offensive coordinator in NFL history. He ran the same plays over and over again. A crossing route to Devontae Adams, a corner route to Brock Bowers, and a route up the seam to Brock Bowers over and over again. And they had one of the worst rushing games in the NFL. A lot of that was on coaching and lack of talent up front. But you got to see how bad Luke Getsy was as an offensive coordinator with the Bears and the same with the Raiders. Before they hired Luke Getsy, it was a lot of reports that Cliff Kingsbury was supposed to be the head coach, was supposed to be the offensive coordinator, with this organization. They just couldn't come down to a dollar amount. He goes over to the Washington Commanders. He becomes one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL from the previous season. So it was just a bunch of bad luck with the Raiders over the last few years. Tom Brady comes out. He's now part of the ownership with the Raiders. He's not the main owner, but he's on the board. He's able to go out there and make certain decisions. They move off of Tom Telesco. They moved off Antonio Pierce, which was the right decision to do. Even though I still like Antonio Pierce as a position coach, we'll see if he could work out in the future in the NFL. You now have Tom Brady coming in. You moved off Jimmy Garoppolo. You cut him. He's no longer here. Gardner Minshew, you just moved off of him. It's time to overhaul this roster and put them into the right situation. And we fast forward all the way to 2025. They will go out there and hire Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll just split with the Seattle Seahawks a year ago. They moved on from him to bring in Mike McDaniels. As you can tell, Pete Carroll still wants to be a head coach at some level. He goes to USC, basically becomes a teacher of sorts. Comes back to the NFL as a head coach. Pete Carroll is one of the better coaches that you can have in terms of trying to go out there and stabilize your organization. Players love him. He's not going to go out there and stick his nose in business too many times. He helped develop Russell Wilson. He helped develop Geno Smith. No one in the past has seen Geno Smith as being a starting quarterback in this league until Pete Carroll went out there and said, you know what? We'll trade Russell Wilson. Let him go to the Denver Broncos. His career hasn't been the same since he left Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll said, you know what, Geno, you're a journeyman. We'll go with you. And Geno Smith became a hidden gem with the Seattle Seahawks. Granted, he got to play with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. That's true. But he never looked this good before until Pete Carroll was his head coach. Now you make a trade to bring him over to the Las Vegas Raiders. You give him a 2-year contract extension. This is key. You now have a bridge quarterback in Geno Smith who is very good. Geno Smith, he's not a top 5 quarterback. He's not a top 10 quarterback, but he's very good. Don't sleep on him. He's given the Los Angeles Rams a lot of problems in that division. The same with the San Francisco 49ers. He's a very good quarterback, and he's had some key wins in the past with the Seahawks. They have a playoff appearance with Geno Smith being the starting quarterback. His last season with the Seahawks, 4,320 passing yards. That was the 4th most in the NFL. 21 passing touchdowns to 15 interceptions. You may say, why are you gassing up a quarterback that had 21 passing touchdowns to 15 interceptions? He never had a good, consistent offensive line with Seattle. And his last season was underneath a brand new head coach. On top of that, they did not have a consistent run game. They passed the football at a league high. Entering week 10, Geno Smith was averaging 40 pass attempts a matchup. That's ridiculous. And you had Kenneth Walker III on that roster. And the same with Zach Charbonnet. What's the one thing that Pete Carroll did with Geno Smith? He ran the football a lot with Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet. And he's not the offensive play caller, but he has an emphasis in offensive meetings. Let's run the football, establish the line of scrimmage, take the pressure off the quarterback, use more motion so he can get the weapons to DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith-Njigba in the pass. That was the key. So coming over to the Las Vegas Raiders, that should definitely help stabilize this organization. I don't see them being a Super Bowl contender straight out the gate, But you're just trying to go out there and contend every single week with whomever you play, whether it's the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Denver Broncos. And in my opinion, this is the toughest division in the NFL. So you need a tough head coach who has won a Super Bowl before in the past. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. And it would have possibly won the 2nd Super Bowl in back-to-back years against the Patriots if they ran the football with Marshawn Lynch. That's how good of a coach Pete Carroll is. And he helped build the Legion of Boom on the defensive end. That's a different time ago. That's a different NFL. But when you look at Pete Carroll, he's been a very successful head coach, even on the back end of his tenure with the Seahawks. Don't sleep on that signing. It's one of the best signings in the offseason in terms of you not bringing in a player. The fact they got to bring in a coach in Pete Carroll, he is older. You may say he's on the back end of his career, but he can still go out there. He can still coach. So now you have a coaching staff, Pete Carroll, and you have Chip Kelly. I'm not the biggest fan of Chip Kelly, the head coach. He was terrible with the Philadelphia Eagles. He scripted that team down. They were a shell of them former selves. As an offensive mind, I have to give him credit. He's elite. And we got to see this with Ohio State. What did he do? Run the football with Travion Henderson, run the football with Jenkins. And we've seen this in the past with LaShawn McCoy. He's going to run the football. It's the emphasis up front. When I look at the offense that the Raiders had with Luke Getsy, you didn't see many motion plays. You didn't see guards pulling around. You didn't see the tackle swinging around. With Chip Kelly, he's going to put an emphasis on running the football, which is definitely going to help out Geno Smith. And that's why in the first round with the 6th overall pick, they went with Ashton Jeanty, running back out of Boise State. He's a generational prospect at that position. I know you may hear that word generational used a lot. With Ashton Jeanty, you can make the case that he was the best player in this year's draft class. I know we have Abdul Carter, we have Travis Hunter. If it was for Travis Hunter playing both sides of the ball at Colorado, he would have easily won the Heisman Trophy this previous season. He was Boise State's offense. 2,601 rushing yards, 7 yards per carry, 29 rushing touchdowns. That's ridiculous. That's a video game player basically come to life. That's how dominant Ashton Jeanty was last year at Boise State. And I know college is different from the NFL. And the last time we saw the Raiders take a running back in the first round, it was Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs had a couple of good years with the Raiders. Towards the end of his tenure with Josh McDaniels, he wasn't the same player. He was dealing with an illness and he was injured for portions of the season. He goes over to the Green Bay Packers. Now you look at him. He's one of the best running backs in the NFL still. And he led the league in rushing for one season with the Raiders. He was a very productive running back. I look at Ashton Jeanty. You can get him the football 25 to 30 times a seat, 25 to 30 times a game. That's what you can do with Ashton Jeanty. And the Raiders have one of the worst rushing offenses in the NFL based off of last season. They couldn't run the football at all. The running backs are not good enough. And on top of that, the talent up front wasn't good either. You had Big Zamir White being your starting running back. He's not good in that role. He was able to come in and match very good production with Josh Jacobs in terms of Josh Jacobs carrying the football 20 times a game. When he's coming in, you give him 5 to 10 carries. That's the best role for Zamir White, not for him to be the premier running back with this organization. You now have Ashton Jeanty. You have Raheem Mostert, and Raheem Mostert has regressed as a player, but he can still be a home run hitter. Feed Ashton Jeanty, feed Raheem Mostert in key situations, and you have Geno Smith, who can spin the football better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and the same with Aiden O'Connell. And most definitely Gardner Minshew. You look at the wide receivers that they have, they're very good. Jacoby Myers, we got to see what he could do with the New England Patriots a few years back, a terrible offense. He was a true number 1 wide receiver. He was the one good thing that came out of Josh McDaniels' administration. 87 catches based off of last season, 1,027 receiving yards, 4 receiving touchdowns. He's a very good player. Trey Tucker can take the top off the defense. He is so underutilized. 539 receiving yards on the season, 3 receiving touchdowns. He's a very good deep threat. And when you look at what they did last year in the first round, shout out to Tom Telesco, Brock Bowers, phenomenal tight end. In my opinion, last season was the best receiving tight end in his rookie year. 112 catches. He was able to go out there and have 1,194 receiving yards, 5 receiving touchdowns. He's a great tight end. He's going to help out those wide receivers. You can run your offense through Ashton Jeanty and also through Brock Bowers. And the one thing with Pete Carroll, again, he likes to run his team through the trenches. He's done that in the past. So having Brock Bowers on the outside, you can motion him out as a wide receiver, on the inside as a tight end. You now have to focus in on him. Trey Tucker, Jacoby Myers, they should be able to eat on the outside. If you don't have that much faith in those wide receivers long term, that's why he selected Jack Beck with the 58th pick, wide receiver from TCU. He was an average wide receiver until his last season with TCU. He's 6'2", 215 pounds, 1,034 receiving yards in the year, 17 yards a catch, 9 receiving touchdowns. Just a very good wide receiver that could play on the outside. And I expect for him to be very useful in his rookie season with the Raiders. They have a lot of good weapons here. And once again, this is not about going out there and just trying to win a Super Bowl in year number 1 with Pete Carroll and Geno Smith. This is still a rebuild. You're just trying to go out there and stabilize your organization. So these 2 top picks, I agree with it. Your defense, you did lose some talent like Trayvon Mooring, which I am concerned about on the back end of this defense, but you have good players up front. But getting Jack Beck with the 58th pick, I think that's a steal, especially in this draft with wide receivers being limited. He could come in and be very effective on day 1. With the 68th pick, this is where they go out there and they get some defensive help. Darian Porter, cornerback from Iowa State. Just a big cornerback that can cover outside wide receivers. And that's what you need in this division. You have Cortland Sutton. You have Rashee Rice in this division. You have Ladd McConkey. He's more so of a slot wide receiver. Darian Porter, he's not going to match up with him in the Los Angeles Chargers, but he will match up very well on the outside with Quentin Johnston. That is why you drafted him with the 68th pick. 3 interceptions on the year. He's not a contact corner. When you look at certain cornerbacks, they say he doesn't like contact. He may not tackle running back in the open field. Darian Porter, he's not known for doing that. He can do that, but with some times in the past Iowa State, he'll just shy away for the run. He'll wait for a linebacker to get down there. Then he'll just try to gang tackle the running back. His last season with Iowa State, he was getting physical with running backs. It didn't end out too well every single week. He needs to work on his tackling, but as the cover corner, and that's what you worry about your cornerbacks, he will be fine with the Raiders, and they have a very good defensive coordinator in Coach Patrick. I like what the Raiders are doing. And when I look at the rest of the defense, the key moves that you've made in free agency before by bringing in Christian Wilkins, having Mad Max Crosby, giving him a major contract extension, that should definitely help out with your front seven. Max Crosby only had 7.5 sacks last season, but he missed significant time. Christian Wilkins, when you first got him over from the Miami Dolphins, one of the best defensive tackles you can have. He missed majority of last season dealing with a foot injury. Let's not forget that. Malcolm Kuntz, he missed all of last season dealing with a knee injury. I really hope that he can return back to form. The last time that we saw Malcolm Kuntz on the field, he was a very good pass rusher. He was able to go out there and have a very good productive season. And I think that Malcolm Kuntz is one of those players you look at and you say, hey, there's a lot of upside there. 8 sacks the last time we saw him play in 2023 and 3 forced fumbles. We'll see how he looks coming back from that knee injury, but he doesn't have to go out there and he doesn't have to be Max Crosby 2.0. Can you just get consistent pressure off the edge? And you still have a developmental pass rusher and Tyree Wilson. Tyree Wilson so far has been a bust. They selected him in the first round a few years back. He has not translated that talent over just yet. At Texas Tech, he had that bend. He was a raw pass rusher coming out of Texas Tech. Usually those pass rushers, they become very good in year number 2. Look at Tyree Wilson. In year number 1, I felt bad for him. Another situation the Raiders ran into with just bad luck, the mental illness with Chandler Jones. He's going out there saying a lot of things on social media that just make you scratch your head and say, okay, something's going on with this man. They go out there, they release him. It places Tyree Wilson in a tough spot. He's supposed to be this rotational defensive lineman on third down. Now you're starting first, second, and third down. There was a lot of pressure on a young football player. And he was dealing with injuries in the past. He has to go out there and be more consistent as a rotational pass rusher and put pressure on quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and now Bo Nix. The quarterbacks in this division are stacked. And when I really look at Tyree Wilson, he doesn't have to go out there and have double-digit sacks in a season. This is where the key for using him can be incremental for the Raiders long term. Can he just keep up with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes that goes outside the pocket? Can you just stand in his face and put pressure on him? And the same with Bo Nix and Justin Herbert. I find it funny that all of those quarterbacks can go out there and make a lot of plays off script. You need athletic defensive linemen. So it's definitely a role for Tyree Wilson, but his block shedding has to be better. He has to find a way to at least just be a quarterback spy. Find use with him. And I want him to pan out. A defensive rotation of Max Crosby, who's going to always be on the field no matter what if he's fully healthy, Christian Wilkins, Malcolm Kuntz, and Tyree Wilson, that's a very good plethora of defensive linemen and defensive edge rushers that should constantly be able to get to the quarterback and stop the run. And the strong suit with the Raiders, which is crazy to think about, has been their defense over the last few years. I find it so ironic. When they had Derek Carr, especially in his prime with the Raiders, their defense never ranked over 25th in total defense in the NFL. As soon as you trade the man, your defense becomes your strong suit, which is just crazy. Once again, shout out to the defensive coordinator for fixing the defense. And it's hard for your defense to go out there every single week and perform when you're dealing with constant turnovers and 3-and-outs over and over again. So far as the defense with the Raiders, they're doing the right things. Devin White is also a starting linebacker with the team long term. Hopefully, he can go back and look like how he looked with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a few years back. Devin White has potential with that speed to be a road raider in this division. They're going to need him to go out there and stop the run and send him on certain blitzes up the middle to get the quarterbacks once again like Bo Nix, Patrick Mahomes, and Justin Herbert. You signed to Landon Roberts. The reason why you signed to Landon Roberts, you lost Robert Spillane in free agency, who had 91 solo tackles on the year. Robert Spillane was a very good linebacker. But Landon Roberts, he's not terrible. He was a very good linebacker for the Steelers in key situations and key downs. But overall, the secondary with the Raiders, I have a lot of questions. You're signing Eric Stokes, still a young player. He's 26 years old, has dealt with injury concerns in the past. Jeremy Chin is a very good strong safety, one of the most underrated safeties in the NFL. With the Carolina Panthers, he's a very good player. Last season with the Washington Commanders, he gave them very good production. So overall with the Raiders, I like what they did this offseason, overhauling your roster by bringing in a veteran quarterback in Geno Smith. And if it doesn't work out, he's on a cheap extension deal. You can draft a quarterback in next year's draft class or the year after. As far as the offensive line, I still have concerns here, but Chip Kelly can help coach up the offensive line, and you have key pieces here. Far as DJ Glaze at the right tackle position, you draft him in last year's draft class. Let's see if he can work out as a starting right tackle. You have Alice Kappa at the right guard position. If he doesn't work out, you have Caleb Rogers, who you selected with the 98th pick, coming over from Texas Tech. He's a very good run guard. As a pass protecting guard, he's not there just yet. He's still raw. That's why he slipped with the 98th pick. But there's a lot of upside with a tackle that's 6'5", 311 pounds. Jackson Powers Johnson. This is where I'm starting to rub my hands together. I love Jackson Powers Johnson. He came over from Oregon. Possibly should have been a first-round pick if it wasn't for the concussions. Their offensive line took a complete 180 in the interior when he was a starter. They had one of the worst offensive line groups in the interior. As soon as you placed him in, you saw a lot of open rushing lanes open. They were there for a quick second. He could play left guard, he could play right guard, he could play center. I know that he had the debacle with Aiden O'Connell when they went against the Chiefs as a Black Friday game. They were in that matchup. It came down to a fumble snap. But Jackson Powers Johnson, young player entering year number 2, he has potential to be one of the best centers in the NFL. And obviously you have your best offensive lineman in Colton Miller. They are still trying to go out there and rebuild this offensive line. It's going to take time. And that's my one thing when I'm going to say, if you are a Raiders fan, give it time. Be patient with the organization. I know they've been through so many different head coaches over the last few years. Jack Del Rio, going out there and having John Gruden. You had to sit with Rich Bisaccia as an interim head coach due to those emails with John Gruden. Then you bring in Josh McDaniels. They're still carrying over the effect of Josh McDaniels till this day. That's why it's essential to bring in the right people. And that's what Tom Brady's trying to do. Bring in the right people and establish the right culture. And I love the fact that they did not go up there and they did not reach for a quarterback in the second or third round. They waited later in the NFL draft to draft 2 quarterbacks. We'll see who will be the backup quarterback with Geno Smith. Right now, the leading favorite seems to be Aiden O'Connell. There's a lot of reports about them possibly trading him. Aiden O'Connell, I believe he's better than Cam Miller, and he's better than Carter Bradley. Aiden O'Connell could come in for a game or two. He can keep your offense head above water. Long term, he's not going to be a good starter in the NFL. And he was a better quarterback last season than Gardner Minshew. Aiden O'Connell is just more so of a scarecrow inside the pocket. Geno Smith has that mobility. But let me know in the comment section below how you feel about the Las Vegas Raiders and their NFL draft in 2025 and their complete overhaul in their front office. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless.